Good morning. This recording is for Pre-Algebra Chapter 9, Lesson 8, and today you and I are going to talk about transformation and specifically translation. So transformation is a change of position or size of a figure. Basically, if I were to take a figure and move it, like pick up my coffee cup and move it, or if I were to take my coffee cup and make it bigger or smaller, I would be performing a transformation, right? The thing is that we're going to talk specifically about translation today, which is just basically moving something. We have a point or a group of points that starts in one place, and then we're going to move it to a new place. And we say that the initial place that group of points starts at, or a point, is the figure. And then by moving it, we now have its image. Something that looks exactly like it, but it's now in a new place. All right? And images are congruent to their figures because when we're doing translation, we're moving all of the points that are related to that figure in the same direction so that they're all still the same distance apart. They're just moved over from where they started. Okay? So let's go ahead and try this out real quick. So if I start out with this figure, which is a triangle, and this is triangle KRT, or triangle TKR, or triangle RTK, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to translate it to a different point. All right, but this is also the figure. The initial part is the figure. And now that I've moved it, it's now the image. And I can also tell the difference between the figure and the image because the figure just has letters. Now, if you look at the image, they've got these little tick mark thingies right above the letter. And they kind of look like an exponent of 1. Well, they are what we call prime notation. Prime notation. And it denotes the fact that the image this is the first image. Now, I could also do double prime, which we'll talk about later, where it would be like 2 little marks. And then you could also have triple prime, where it's 3 little marks. But for right now, when you've only moved it once, you only have a prime notation. If you move it after that, you're going to have a double prime notation. And then if you move it a third time, you have triple prime notation. Okay? So make sure you pay attention to the little marks that are above the letters. They're going to tell you what the figure is, because the figure doesn't have them, and what the image is, because the image does have them. All right, so that is prime notation, and it denotes the image compared to the figure. All right, so let's go ahead and practice some translation together. If you want, you can go ahead and draw this figure, and this is figure ABC, or ABCD, and it kind of looks like that, like I'm just going to draw it real quick because I've been wanting to do it. You know, like in Star Wars, not the new ones, but the original ones, there's that, like, the little guys that run around stealing things, and they steal R2-D2 and C-3PO before, like, Luke meets him. That's what it looks like. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so we're going to translate this figure ABCD, and we're going to move it all 4 units to the left. All right, so I'm going to take this figure and I'm going to move point A 4 points to the left. So it's not going up or down, it's just going 4 units to the left. So, well, actually I started with D, and then I did C, and then I did A, I believe, and then B. So if you missed that, we can go a little slower, or at least we can, I can show it to you again. So I moved D 4 units to the left, and then I moved C 4 units to the left, and then I moved A 4 units to the left and B 4 units to the left. And notice how I'm using that prime notation to denote the fact that this is now the image of the original figure. All right, the original figure does not have prime notation. The new figure, which is called the image, does have prime notation. All right, and now I'm going to do number 2, and I'm going to do it in orange. And I'm going to go back to the original figure, figure ABCD, and I'm going to write a new figure, and it's going to be 5 units down. So there it is. Actually, I can show you. So 5 units down. B is double prime, A is double prime, D is double prime, and C is double prime, and they all got moved 5 units down. Okay, so even if I weren't going to go take my original image that has the A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, and then move that 5 units down, I can still use the double prime to show that this is a different image, okay? Because, there we go. Alrighty, let's go on to the next slide. Notice how translation doesn't change the shape or size of the figure. The figure and its image are congruent. All right, and again, it's a little sloppy, but you can tell that they're roughly the same shape and size. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, alrighty. We can use describing translation. We can describe translations using arrow notation. And it looks like that really cool arrow right there, which describes the mapping of a figure into its image. The only thing is this really only works for 1 point if I'm moving 1 point. So if I have a point here, and I'm going to move it, and I have figure F, and it's going to image F prime, I just use the arrow notation, which this is not the arrow notation, this is the arrow notation to show that point F at negative 2, 2 goes to image F, or F prime, at 2, negative 2. And this is what the real notation looks like. All right, I'm saying that my figure is going to my image. And again, this only works for 1 dot or 1 point. All right? Now, if we're going to do multiple points that make up a figure, we're going to have to use the mapping rules. All right? And because the mapping rules will say that no matter where a point starts in the figure, as long as it's going to a specific image, it will follow a specific rule. So let's go ahead and figure out how that one works. All right, so you can use arrow notation to write a general rule that describes a translation. To write a rule for a translation, and then again, this is for multiple points, not just 1 point. Choose corresponding points on a figure and its image. So like you could choose point P, where point P starts at 3, 2, and the image of point P, or P prime, would be negative 2, 3. And we're just going to do some math with it, some subtraction, to figure out the rule. So basically you take the x's, and again that's the horizontal change, and you subtract them, and it's always going to be the image minus the figure to give you the change. And then you do it for the horizontal change, the vertical change, which is the y's, and you get a rule, which is written like this. You write the rule like this, guys. It's very important that you understand that format where the xy goes to x minus 5 and then x plus 3. And we can really take a look at that because if we start at the figure and we go to the left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go up 3, 2, 3, we're going to get to the image of that point. So even if I follow the same rule for R, it should work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Check that out. And then the same for Q. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 3. It works out, all right? So this rule tells you that no matter where you start on the figure, it should get you to its image by using this rule. It's kind of like map directions, like Google Maps, where they're like, all right, if you start here and then follow these directions, you're going to actually end up where you want to be. And in this case, we're starting at the figure and ending up at its image. All right, so let's go ahead and practice this real quick with this example. We have B at negative 2 and C at B at negative 2, 2, and we have B prime at 3, 1. All right? And we need to come up with a rule so that even if we started at A or C or D, we would go ahead and end up at A prime or C prime or D prime, depending on which point we started at. So let's go ahead and figure out what my horizontal change would be. So my horizontal change is my x image point, or x image coordinate, minus the minus the x figure coordinate. So it's the x's minus each other, but we're minusing the image from the figure. All right, and then if we want to do a vertical change, we're going to do the y image minus the y figure. So let's go ahead and do that math real quick. So I'm going to do the horizontal change first, which has to do with the x's. So that would be 3 minus negative 2, which ends up giving me 5, which is the horizontal change, and 1 minus 2, which is the vertical change. And if I stick that in the rule, I say that no matter where x and y are, it goes to x plus 5 and y minus 1. So that if I start at B and I want to get to my image of B, I'm going to start at B and I'm going to go 5 to the right because x tells me left and right and y tells me up and down. So I'm going to go 5 to the right and I'm going to go down 1 because it's a negative 1. All right, but then I can also use this rule for any other point on the figure to get to any other point on the figure. Ta-da! Okay, guys, I'm done. I hope you understand translations. Translations are pretty fun, actually. I like them.